Hi, welcome back to Lovin Sheila, the podcast. We're back today with the full edition because we have a lot to say and kind of recap this year that went by so quickly, this 2024. I took some time and I watched Lost and Found, which was last year around this time, and just looking to see where I was and like seeing the expectations that I had for this year. And it's been a good year. It's been a year full of growth, enjoyment, love, fellowship, um, new beginnings, fresh starts, just a lot of great things happening. So it's been a good year. And of course, we all go through our ups and downs. But as I look back over 2024, all in all, a lot happened and it was a blessing. God was good to us in this year, and I'm very grateful for everything that occurred. And it's really refreshing, and I'm happy to say that as I look back at Lost and Found from last year, I see where I was and what I was thinking, and how I said like I had lost something, and then I found it. It was right beneath me, and so it's always right to me. It's always right there, whatever I'm looking for. And I feel like so many times people look for peace, our validation, our happiness externally. And I think the purpose of this podcast is to know that those things are not external, but they are things that we control, that are within us. And our validation and our happiness and our joy is internal. And we control that. And no matter what relationships we have or don't have, it doesn't control whether we're happy, or we have joy, if we're validated, because it doesn't come from those relationships. It comes from us and loving ourselves and being happy with ourselves and who we are. And I had some conversations during this week, and someone was telling me what men want, and I found that interesting. I thought it was interesting because while they were telling me what men want, I was thinking, what do women want? I feel like, it's there's equality in that, meaning I don't think women should strive to simply determine what men want and present that. I think that men also need to understand what we want and try and meet us there. And I think if we had those types of ideas, I think we would get along better. Our relationships would be more cohesive and whatnot. But I had the conversation, I guess, in regards to my podcast here, and I really want to stay away from, though I believe we're all in relationships, and I value relationships. This is certainly not the place where I'm trying to help people in relationships. My purpose is to find a place of wholeness. The purpose of this podcast is to let us know that we can be whole within ourselves, by ourselves, through loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And one of the things for relationships is, and I heard this some time ago, you don't want like a half a person and another half person coming together to make a whole. We want to have two whole individuals coming together and just, prospering and living out their dreams. But, we need to be whole first, I believe. And so that's what I'm here working on, my wholeness, and making sure that I'm covering everything from my health to my wealth to my fitness to my fun to my living the life that I envision. It's all encompassing and part of my whole, to my, can't forget my spiritual. It's all encompassing. And so that's what we are here at Lovin Sheila. We're just here working on our wholeness, our wellness, our spiritual life, our physical life, and just trying to make it the absolute best it can be. And if we get to share it with someone, that's just icing on the cake. And if we get to share it with ourselves, well, that's just fabulous. And that takes me to something I spent so much time in the last month. I was intentional when I hadn't been back with you all since I did my soft girl era. There are a lot of things happened in my life, a lot of, you know, a lot of things, a lot of changes, I could say. And I really wanted to sit with that. And even prior to the changes, I had spent some time just watching Sex in the City, binge watching. I watched the whole season, the whole series in about 2 weeks. So obviously, I had a lot of time on my hands. Like I mentioned to you all, that I had been spending quite a bit of time alone and having some solitude. And so I looked at Sex in the City and always looking for inspiration. And even in these shows, I find inspiration. I just see little things and whatnot. And so I watched all of Sex in the City. And at the end, Carrie found herself in Paris. And then Big came to get her. And, I guess they were set up to live happily ever after. And when she came back to the city and she came back to her friends, she's like, I think she summed it up in that the relationship, the most important relationship you have is the relationship you have with yourself. And then she said, if you find someone who loves you, and you, that's just fabulous. And I thought that was poignant because I felt like she had gone through all these different relationships and all these different things and struggled and loved someone and wanted to be the one for him, and it never quite worked out. And the lesson that she learned after all this turbulence is that I've been looking for all these relationships, but the most important relationship is the one that I have with myself. And so that's where I have been for some time, working on my relationship with myself, because I felt like I was neglecting myself, neglecting my needs, my wants, and failing to communicate those things to people who love me. And so I really had to sit down and dig in and try and get to myself. Just like the book we read, or I read, Want Yourself, really trying to get to me. Who am I? What do I love? What makes me me? And it's been an interesting journey. It's been a phenomenal journey, just learning more and more about me. And I hope that we're all embarking on this because, we learn our men, we learn our children, we learn our friends and our parents, but we need to learn us because that's the most significant relationship that we are having. I need to know what makes me happy, what makes me sad, what is disappointing to me, and all these different things so I can maneuver my life and create the life that I want. And that's where we are. And so once I have that, and I'm having a good relationship with Sheila, and I'm loving Sheila, then I think I can bring a better representation to any relationship that I have. And so that's where I'm focused, and just taking care of me, and all this other stuff will take care of itself. So as I looked at, I'm kind of skipping around. So as I looked at Lost and Found, the episode from Lovin Sheila from last year, I realized at that time I was kind of taking a bit of inventory and looking at my life and trying to make sure that I was seeing things as they are. And that's what another thing, and that quite frankly has been a challenge for me because, I've been one who I'll see this and then I'll see the red flag and I'll be like, okay, well, we'll just sweep that one under the rug. But, going into 2025, what we're going to do is we're going to keep our eyes wide open and see things exactly for what they are and make decisions based on what we know. Because in the end, anything that you sweep under the rug is going to come back and haunt you or bite you, or it's going to come up. So what that teaches me, and something I talked about last year, I think, is having standards in relationships, and I mean all relationships. And standards and boundaries, I guess they can kind of go hand in hand. But right now, I'm going to talk about standards for relationships and for a relationship between men and women. You know, I took the time last year to write down my standards. And I went back recently and I took a look at them and I was like, wow, these are pretty freaking basic. I could do better. And so I started to enhance those. And what I need to do and what I encourage us all to do is once we have those standards, you know, make sure everything aligns. Make sure that whomever you're dealing with is aligning with that, because those things, there are some things that are not negotiable. There's some things that are negotiable, you know, but we need to understand that in our standards, what is negotiable and what's not negotiable. So that's what I learned. There's some things that, like, for instance, like credit, not that might, to me, that is a non-negotiable, you know, because there are things I want to do. And if I'm going to partner with you, you know, so that's something that I need to make sure that I regard it as a non-negotiable and moving forward. So, you know, I have seen that I don't always uphold my standards. And so what I'm saying is, don't be like me. Make sure that you are maintaining your standards at all times. And for that reason, I found myself in the midst of my solitude, or the time, my alone time, I found myself even taking a little time out, because I was like, okay, you just need to sit down. You need to sit down and you need to like focus on life and how you want it to be. And there are a lot of pulls in this world, and there are a lot of things that, you know, it wants you to do and be a part of. But we have to have standards and we have to uphold them. And sometimes while we're upholding those standards, we got to take a minute for ourselves and just sit back so that we don't get caught up. And there are times when you're, like for me, I've been more, been going through different changes. And so I feel like I could be more vulnerable. And so with that vulnerability, I feel like the best place for me is in the safety and the confines of my own home. And, you know, just to reset and, like I often say, recalibrate. So we're recalibrating for 2025. Now we've got standards are being lifted, and we're adding more to it because we've learned some things along the way. Boundaries. I'm getting better at this. I'm getting so much better at this. I don't do what I don't want to do. I don't go where I don't want to go. I don't spend my money on what I don't want to spend my money on. I don't entertain who I don't want to entertain. And I'm excited about that because that's setting up my 2025 to be more powerful. Now, going back to the previous episode, Soft Girl Era, when I told you I was talking about my alone time, I was talking about how folks could show up for me because I was not a damsel in distress, and how you can check on me and check in with me and whatnot. But I also want to say we have to show up for ourselves. And that's what I found in this downtime, that I am checking how I'm showing up for me and how I'm taking care of me. Because my soft girl era doesn't just mean that, you know, whomever I'm dealing with is showing up and checking. It means that I'm showing up and checking and caring for myself, because it's important. And how can anyone else show up for me if I can't show up? Because if I'm not representing, if I don't have boundaries, I don't have standards, how can someone show up appropriately for me when I'm downplaying my standards and my boundaries or whatnot? So that's what I'll say. Checking in to make sure that I'm showing up for me the way I want to and representing myself the way that I want to. Because then other folks can likewise do the same. You know, if you lift the standard of how you should be treated or how you should be regarded, either folks will come correct or they won't come at all. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. And as also that we would be discerning in all of our relationships, so we can discern, this is good, this is bad, this is going to lead me down the wrong direction. Yes, that's what we must do. So as I'm talking about who shows up for me, how I show up for me, when I'm dealing with others and who show up, there is an someone said this to me once, and there's an exchange rate on this, you know. And I'm not trying to be a scorekeeper, but in relationships, there's an exchange rate. What am I getting in this interaction, in this relationship, or in this entanglement, whatever it is? What is the exchange rate when it's over, or when you're not talking, or when whatever it is, when you break up? What do you take away? If it's a relationship and it's a breakup, you take away that it was good. I learned a lot. For me, and like my last relationship, I'll take away that I learned a lot. I practiced a lot of what I talked about. I grew and I communicated and I tried to express my needs, and I communicated when I didn't like something. And what I said to myself is, whether or not he could appreciate it, respond, or change anything, it wasn't my problem, it wasn't my responsibility. My responsibility was to communicate, to make it known how I felt, what I felt. My responsibility was to communicate. And for that, I give myself an A, because I know in my past I probably got an F for that. So the exchange rate it was an opportunity for me to grow, for me to learn how to better interact with a man, for me to communicate my needs effectively, and to be loving and warm and a safe place and an open place. And so when I look at that, I look at like, okay, this is positive. This was a good exchange rate. What I learned that I, can enforce boundaries. I learned mutual respect, all these different things. So I'm like, that was the exchange rate. And so that's what we need to evaluate as we have these different relationships or interactions with people. What does it take from you? And what does it give to you? Now, if it's positive, if you don't feel depleted, if you don't feel like you need a vacation from that interaction, or if you don't feel like you need to be put on time out from that interaction, God bless you. The exchange rate is good. But if you find that it's draining and it's taking more from you than it's giving, and it doesn't send you towards your purpose and what you believe, who you believe you are, and it just detracts from who you are, the exchange rate isn't there. So we need to remove ourselves from that. Okay, that's the lesson that I learned. So, so evaluate the exchange rate. And I talked about solitude previously, and I talked about that solitude being a place where you find peace. And that's what I want. I don't want a life full of chaos. I want to find my peace, and I want to be in a safe space, and that's what I live for. That's what the design is for. I'm working, to maintain harmony in my life, and the solitude has helped promote some harmony, and that's what we're looking for. And rebuilding away from the noise of the world. Like I said before, all the pushes and the pulls of this world, we have to like center ourselves. And so in that, I think I've got clarity on a lot of things moving forward and for 2025. And it's all about me. This is my me time. This is the first time that I have been single, unattached, absolutely unattached, since my divorce. And it's empowering in a sense. Like, I feel that my time alone, my selective and protective time alone, has been so empowering. It has shown me how much control I actually have. And so that empowerment has been fabulous for me. And the empowerment to choose you, the empowerment to know that you are good enough all by yourself, the empowerment to know that you have done so much on your own by the grace of God, with the help of God. There's no man who has made you or has established you. It's very empowering, it's very liberating. And so I'm leaning into that, taking that into 2025, knowing that greater things are going to come, knowing that we've set the foundation for everything we need. We've learned about ourselves. We have protected our peace. We've learned to trust ourselves, our instincts, our intuition. We've learned to see things clearly, exactly as they are, eyes wide open, not eyes wide shut. And it really sets us up for a future that is very bright, that is that the sky is the limit, knowing what we know and knowing that we are in control of our destiny, and nothing can come into your life unless you want it there. You have boundaries that help you maintain your peace and your clarity and your balance, because I am a person who likes balance in their life. So all these things are set up so we can move forward, and joy in the new year, and expectation, just like we had last year. It's only going to get bigger and better, and we're going to grow. And I'm excited to do some traveling in the new year. I'm excited to come to you from new locations and share new thoughts, and continue to work on our happily ever after, because we are going to get there. We're going to get to our happily ever after. So stay tuned for more. I'm excited to share with you, and I'll see you in 2025. In the meantime, God bless you. Take care, and see you soon.